Hey babies. Hey babies. Hey babies. Hi everyone. Happy Monday. What's up, everybody? Everybody's in their off season now. Callow's caps are done. I can't wait for the Commanders to start practicing again. We lost the draft line. Really talk about the Wizards as like having some kind of enormous future ahead of them. Oh man, we're getting to the doldrums outside of, I mean, there's big time sports happening, but I'm going to get to this later. All these elimination games are duds, like bad duds, like across the board. The hockey game yesterday, the game 7 and okay was awful yesterday. The finale of the Knicks and Celtics was awful. Like it's been rough go here this spring.
Yeah, it's been funny. The build up to all these game sevens has been better than the actual game sevens themselves. There has not been anything that has been worth writing home about. Last night's, though, you could have predicted Maple Leafs losing game 7. That's like, the sky is blue, like it's not shocking.
But 6-1,
they gave up 3
after
goals.
They had lost a couple games ago, 6-1. Like it's pretty.
I mean, they gave up 3 goals in like 6 or 7 minutes, whatever it was. And that's when it was over in the second period. And it's just, how this goes. We used to live this as a town. It wasn't just like if the Caps were in an elimination game, it wasn't the pressure of just Caps fans. It was the whole city. Same thing with the Nationals too. Like I always joke about it. When the Capitals won their Stanley Cup, the whole entire pressure of the city went away from that point on for a couple of years. With Toronto, they get close to an elimination game and all of a sudden it's crushing. I think Brad Marchand even talked about it last night. It was like, yeah, well, we knew going in they were going to feel the pressure more than us because their fans dictate that. And I was like, oh God.
Yeah. It's rough to play in a place like that where the expectations are so out of whack. All right, let's get to the football first. I'll come back to all that stuff in a little bit. The big thing that happened over the weekend was San Francisco did indeed pay Brock Purdy. And it's something in the neighborhood of about 50-some million a year, which puts him not the highest paid quarterback, but amid the top 10, probably closer to the top 5 quarterbacks. And there's a no trade clause in the middle of this. So every little last bit of this reads to me that the ownership got involved. The ownership said they want him to be the quarterback. They've decided this, that whether John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan believe he's the right guy to get that kind of money in that kind of term and those kind of Brad Beal things in the middle of it. Good luck with that. This is a mistake. Like, I just put me down now for this. I think he's better than the way he gets criticized. I think way too much. Like, I actually think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's a great one. I don't think he has the skill set to necessarily be a great one. And he has to have really, really good players around him to maximize his abilities. But I want to be clear about this. I don't think he's bad. I think he's actually very good. And I think a lot of people judge the book by the cover and they look at him and they go, Mr. Irrelevant, small-ish guy, isn't particularly fast, doesn't have the best arm. And they look at it and they go, not and will never be Pat Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow will never be one of those people. And I agree to some degree about that, but they go too far the other way and suggest that he's a product of everything around him, system players, all that stuff. I think he's a very good player, but there's a line that I draw. And $50-some million a year, that percentage of your cap, no trade clause. Wow. Okay, like you have made your bed, San Francisco. Don't come crying to us if your offense never turns into the juggernaut that it was like when you had a healthy McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo. Like, don't come crying to me if he can't elevate the other people around him now.
No, I look at Purdy and I've always tried to kind of compare him to Kirk and see what their careers are. But I would say this too, though, like Kirk had never had an offense where he was thrown to Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle. Like he never had that many weapons. I would say never one on the Redskins. And
yeah, certainly not on the Redskins, but last couple of years, Minnesota's got Justin Jefferson. And
he had Diggs at one point where Diggs was in his prime. Like don't get me wrong.
Yeah, Jefferson might be the best receiver in the NFL. It's not like he didn't have real weapons up there for sure.
But he didn't have that where it was like every position was stacked, right? So I would say this. Purdy didn't play as well as Kirk with all of those weapons. I've never put him. I think they're kind of in the same tier, but even Cousins is a little bit better than Purdy. I'm not handed $50 million to a guy that's not better than Kirk Cousins. That's where I'm landing.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing that hurts, like the Kirk argument is Sam Darnold had a career year there with the same people that Kirk had, so it's like kind of proof that the system is there. This came out last week at the Caleb stuff where they met KOC and they were like, they want to go to Minnesota. At least that's like what the dad told Seth Wickers when they would have wanted to go there because they see the light with him and the offense that he's creating. This is not anything about Kyle either. I think he's got an extremely inventive offense. Logan Paulson, who obviously does the games with me, talks about him all the time that he's like amazed by what Kyle always puts out there. And Brock Purdy can be a product of all of that. But I just feel like this deal, mark it down. This is a mistake. It like when he's making not a lot of money, it's great. When he's making this kind of money and then it affects what you can do with the rest of the roster, this is where you get yourself in trouble. And this is the problem with the quarterback salary stage. And like realistically, they're now in the boat like everybody else. Who do they have that's better than him? And they don't have anybody that's better than him. And they're one of the few that can make the argument of, well, we turned him into this. Why don't we go get the dude from Louisville in the second or third round? We could do the same thing with him, but there's no guarantee of that. And there never is a guarantee of that. And even they used a number 3 overall pick and traded away a ton of assets, and that didn't work out. So I like this to me, all this does to me is kind of puts them in a Kirk category where if they have the right people around them, maybe the stars align and they have a pretty deep run, but he doesn't elevate all these other people. But he's not bad. He's good. He'll always put up pretty good stats. He's pretty good with the ball, but is he going to elevate other people? And in the end, we know this because we've been going through this forever. If you don't have one of the studs in the years that you don't have that kind of roster, it's like impossible to win big. It doesn't mean you can't win, but you can't win big. That's where I am on Purdy.
Yeah, and I mean, I would make the argument here too. Like you're saying, win big. They made it to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So yes. I mean, like they've done it before without him either. Like I think that's the other side of this as well that makes me uneasy about this deal is Kyle's not only demonstrated it in other places that he could get it done, right? Like Kirk Cousins, I think, is the shining example that he got it done here when he was the quarterback. And things were, pretty good, and it set the stage up for Cousins to basically be paid for the rest of his career. Well, they also got Garoppolo from New England and went all the way to the Super Bowl. And to your point, the Chiefs came back, but they were winning in that fourth quarter, before they did end up winning that Super Bowl, the Chiefs. And they made it further with Garoppolo, technically, than I guess they made it the same because they did make it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. So they made it to the Super Bowl with both Garoppolo and Purdy. And I don't know, if you're doing that, we always like to say around here, Joe Gibbs is one of the best coaches ever because he made it to 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Shanahan's done it with 2 quarterbacks, and 2 quarterbacks that aren't necessarily these top picks. Garoppolo is a second-round pick that sat on the bench for a long time, and Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Like, I don't know. That's the mark of a really good head coach. That's why I'm not willing to give $50 million a year to a guy of Purdy's status. That's where I'm at.
Like at the right price, I love him because you can build the roster around him. At the wrong price, I don't anymore because it makes you make decisions about big-time name players or big-time impact players. That's the problem, I think, here with this one. All right, so last week we did a lot on the Commander schedule. I never went through the Eagles, the Giants, or Dallas because I think it's important to kind of look at what they have in front of them too. The more I think about it, it's not like we didn't know who the opponents were, but then once you see it stacked up, you find spots in the schedule where it feels like it better go pretty well at that point in time for Washington. And this happens with everybody else too. So Washington's got more standalone games than just about anybody else. They're going to be highly profiled. They've got a rough stretch, what looks like early again, more road games than home games. They're going to have to get some wins. They're going to kind of navigate till they get around to it. And then hopefully they'll be in position to make those division games really, really matter at the end of the season where they play 4 in a row, 2 of them against Philadelphia. Here's what the Eagles look like. The Eagles schedule is nasty. One, they don't have back-to-back home games. the entire year. They did not get that at all this year. Washington's got 5 road. I think this matters. Maybe not as much as it used to, because Washington and Minnesota kind of came out of nowhere last year and were teams I don't think people expected to be as good as they are. But Washington does have 5 road games against teams that were playoff teams a year ago, right? The Eagles have 7 road games against teams that were playoff teams a year ago, and not unlike Washington, have a bazillion night games and a crazy schedule that's kind of all over the map. So the Eagles and the Commanders are really going to have to navigate this year. Like, they're going to be very tough schedules. And with the Eagles, there is a period of time in the middle of the season for Washington where after that first 8 weeks where they're 5 road games, 3 home games, they have about a month. There is an unusual travel schedule part of that. They go to Madrid, right? But that has eliminated what is a true road game because they're not playing the Dolphins in their stadium. So it negates one of those road games. It becomes a neutral site game. Yeah, it's going to be hard in the middle of the year to go to Madrid, but Miami has to do it too. It's not like it's some home game for them. And then they're going to come back. They're going to get a bye. And sandwiched in between all of that are 3 home games. So they have this kind of month and a half where there is one piece of long travel, but the rest is a big opportunity in and around it to try to have this like kind of break in the schedule. You better take advantage. Like, I look at that and I go, that's the season. Like, they're night games like Denver and Seattle, but they're here, right? So they've got a shot, right? They have a lot of home games with not a ton of travel. So an opportunity that whatever happens early is going to give them a chance to kind of catch their breath, I think, in that part of the season. Philadelphia doesn't have this. They never have this like month where they're home for the majority of it and they can kind of take a breath and take advantage of that. This is what their schedule is. They have the opener against Dallas. That's at home. Then they go to Kansas City. Then they play the Rams at home. Then they go to Tampa, and then they play Denver at home. Yes, 3 of those 5 are at home. 4 of them in a row are playoff teams from a year ago. That's tough. I mean, really out of the gate tough, assuming these teams from last year are the same this year. And I think you could bet that the Rams and the Chiefs are. Denver may be ascending, and Tampa's been good for a while. It's not like they came out of nowhere. They have a brutal first 5 games of the season.
No, that's a tough ask to play Dallas. So you got to play banner night against a Dallas team that also got better, and then turn right around and play the team that you beat in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, who are also going to be coming off an emotional, first week, and then having to get a first crack at you since losing in the Super Bowl. That's a tough first couple of weeks, let alone the next 3 that you named that were all legitimate playoff teams. I mean, division winners. I mean, yeah, I know the Broncos got killed in the playoffs, but they still made it. It was the first year for Bo Nix. I expect him to be better. Like, everyone's talking about sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels, and we want to say improvement. I think Bo Nix is the kind of the same way. I think he's going to be even better in year 2. So they've got a tough schedule just in their opponents as well to start that first month. And guess what? You're not fooling anybody as the Super Bowl champ too. You know what I mean? Like, the first month of the season, you and I talk about it all the time. You kind of can't really put too much stock into anybody, but you're definitely not going to take for granted the Super Bowl champ coming in too. So everybody's got, a target on you heading in.
That's right.
That's a tough first month.
Where they get their quote unquote break, and wait till you hear what that break is after those first 5 games, they're going to go to the Giants, go to Minnesota, get the Giants at home, go to Green Bay. So this is what appears to be right now, it's May, the easiest part of their schedule, but it's only because they're playing the Giants twice in a 4-week period. 3 of those games are on the road, and 2 of them are playoff teams a year ago, Minnesota and Green Bay, and that looks like the easiest stretch that they have, and they could easily be 2-2 or worse during that. Like, if they get out of those first 5, 4-1, everybody's in trouble. If they then get out of that next stretch and they're like 7-2, everybody's really in trouble. Philadelphia needs to have 3-4 losses out of this, and it's set up for them to have that, actually.
Yeah. Once again, NFL schedule makers. Why are you making them play the Giants 2 times in
I don't
weeks
know.
like that? Like, and I get the Giants' status here, but these NFC East games, they're always crazy. Like, you cannot count on anything. Even though the Giants have been bad, you cannot count them on anything. Look at how tough they played the Commanders last year in both of those games. Well, I don't know what they're doing with that. That's so weird to me why they would have them playing so close together and at the beginning of the year. That one doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just griping about that in general.
The next stretch for them is where it could go either way. They played Detroit, but it's at home. Then they go to Dallas. I don't think we know what Dallas is, right, at that point. Then they get the Bears, but they get them at home. I don't think we know what they are yet. Then they go to the Chargers. That's a tough trip. It's across the country. Chargers haven't beaten a lot of teams like this, even though they obviously made the playoffs a year ago. So we don't know what they are. And then they're going to get the Raiders at home. So this is also a stretch that really could go either way. If the Bears aren't very good and the Raiders aren't very good, then those are probably wins for them because they're home games. Dallas at this point, the tale will be told about where they are at this point. The Chargers, same. And Detroit, well, that's going to be a marquee game because they're both going to be very good. That's a stretch where we'll see. They close at Washington, at Buffalo, Washington. I might argue that's the hardest stretch of anybody they have in the NFL, the last 3 games. Play a division rival who was in the playoffs that the NFL thinks is going to be really good, if not better, than they were a year ago. They got to play them twice, once on the road, and sandwiched in between is a trip to Buffalo, and that will probably have seeding implications for the Bills, right? Probably.
Sure.
So everybody's pointing to them thinking they're going to be the 1 seed this year. So they have what I think is a more brutal schedule than we do, actually. But, they're the Super Bowl champs. They were the first place team. They should. 7 road games against playoff teams from a year ago. No back-to-back home games. And a couple of stretches at the beginning and the end that look like gauntlets.
Yeah, I mean, the argument there, though, is if they get through a lot of these tough stretches, they're poised to make another Super Bowl run. So, I will say,
of course,
you use that iron sharpens iron argument there, that if they get through that first half stretch and they skate out of there with a 6-3 record in their first 9, all of a sudden we're going to be like, oh God, how are we going to, overcome that? I don't put anything past them anymore because
no.
I think 2 years ago was the year that it imploded on them. Right. And I think last year we were waiting for the implosion and it actually never happened. And kudos to them. They buried whatever they had to go through last year before it went off the rails. That's where I'm worried about them. As much as I make fun of and you make fun of Sirianni, nobody can really say anything to him anymore because he's made it to 2 Super Bowls. He won one last year against the Chiefs. He seemingly has the finger of his pulse, the pulse of that team. And I don't know, if there's somebody that's going to navigate them through that, I can't believe I'm going to say it, but it is Sirianni. So that's the other thing here too. Those tests, I kind of have faith that he's actually going to get it done with them.
It seems like everything has to do with whatever's going on in that locker room and whether people get along.
Yes.
And if 100%. They get along, they are a little too big to fail. They are really, really, really set up. They still have, in my opinion, probably top to bottom best roster, albeit they lost a couple of primary starters on defense, but not ones I don't think they can replace.
Yep.
They lost a really good defensive tackle. Not their best one. They lost a really good rush end, but I think he could be replaced. I don't think he's not Myles Garrett. So that's where I am on them. I actually think the CJ Gardner-Johnson thing might be the biggest deal of things that they lost, but they let him go. So something was clearly up with that. All right, I'll go through the Giants quickly here because I think I'm with you. If there's anyone I do believe they'll be fine, it's them. It's I feel like them where I feel like Washington. They may have as good of teams of a year ago, but the record might not be as good because the schedules for both of them are so brutal that there's no way they don't take some dings along the way.
Right.
And so there's no way around it. Philadelphia can't go 15-2 in a schedule like that. It's too hard. No back-to-back home games, nowhere to breathe. And Washington can't either. They can't do something, not with a schedule there's too many good teams on that schedule, too many good road teams. Turnarounds against playoff teams, even week 2 is in Green Bay. I prefer that than later in the season. It's still a short turnaround in playing up there. It's a hard game for them to have to play. Here's what the Giants have. They start at Washington, at Dallas. They very easily could be 0-2, just to start. And then they're going to turn around, and their first 2 home games are the Chiefs and the Chargers. They could be 1-3, or worse.
0-4, yeah.
Or worse, yes. Things will semi lighten up later in the season for them. They're going to go at New Orleans. I don't know who their quarterback is. Then they get Philly, at Denver, at Philly. That's 3 losses in a row, right? They'll get the Niners. We don't know what they are. They go at Chicago, Green Bay home, at Detroit. They're not surviving this. Like they're just not. Then they get at New England. We don't know what they are. That's Vrabel and Drake May year 2. You don't even know what they are at this point. And I saw a thing that showed, and maybe it's just because the schedule they have. Did you know New England is favored by the odd 17 games this year?
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
That is nuts, considering what they were off of. Then they close Washington at home, Minnesota at home, at Raiders, at Dallas. I mean, it's. I don't think there's very many expectations on them anyway. But like the early part of this schedule, if they walk out of the gates and they are 1-3 or 0-4, which they very easily could be, the season's over for them because they're not good enough to overcome it. And then they're going to be a month in going, when is Jackson Dart playing?
Yeah, I was going to say, I could go through the phases there of who's going to start of Russ for the first 4 games, Jameis for like 1 game, then Jackson Dart probably from there on, depending on how he's doing. What's funny too is you just went through that schedule. That last, what are the last 4 there? If you read those off,
Washington, Minnesota at home, close at Raiders, at Dallas.
Those Raiders and Dallas games scream like they might pull off wins that'll like put them in bad draft position. Those like scream those games. Yeah. I think those scream they won't matter for either team. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, they're going to be one of the teams because they do this every year now where they're in position to win the number 1 overall pick and then they win the useless games at the end of the year and put themselves in a worse position. It seems like that's going to happen again.
And this is Pete Carroll week 17. Their team might be better by the time they get around to the end of the season. Dallas is, I think they're a wild card of wild cards. I think they're hard to know. I think they made an interestingly strange coaching decision, but all the things you're hearing out of there right now is they like this guy and he's kind of pushing the right buttons, but it's May, it's always May. So who knows? As for the Cowboys, this is the one that actually scares me of the schedules of the teams. Because when you hear it, you're going to see if they get through the first month where they're just kind of hanging on there at like 2-2, which is possible. They're going to have a stretch where there are a lot of road games, but very winnable ones in them. And they could all of a sudden have a pretty good record. They start the opener at Philly. That's going to be tough, but who knows? Division game. Then they get the Giants at home. Then they go at Chicago, which is hard to know, right? Hard to know. Then they get Green Bay, but it's at home. See, now this could go sideways. They could be 1-3, or if they get to 2-2, let's say they win the Giants and the Bears games and they lose the other 2, they're still 2-2. Then they get at Jets, don't know. At Carolina, don't know. Washington at home, at Denver, tough stretch there. Arizona at home, at Raiders. If they get through that first month, 2-2, or somehow better than that, their schedule screams they could be 6-4, 7-3 by the time they get to week 10, and they could be sitting because of the schedules that the Commanders and the Eagles have, sitting right there with them. So their schedule actually reads as the most favorable one to me. It gets nasty at the end. I'll get to that in a minute. But like, this is the one where Stephen A might not be cackling at them like through about week 10. And then we're going to get the inevitable, oh my God, the Cowboys are back. And you'll hear the thud landing that's about to happen to them. But if they are 7-3, and that seems really reasonable with what they have, then they've got margin for error down the stretch where they are a factor to be a playoff team.
Yeah, if they are that good and we start getting them out of control, I know the stretch that's about to happen because it is historic. I already read up, like Warren Sharp tweeted about it. Here's the thing you have to factor in with them. It all comes down to Dak. If he's healthy, I don't have any kind of doubt that they could have 6 or 7 wins by the halfway point. If he's not, we know what happens to that team. They fall apart. So he's got to be healthy, and that offense has to be clicking. And I actually wouldn't be shocked. But then you can go into the next 5 games because I know exactly what their schedule is, and good luck with that stretch that they're about to hit.
Yes. This is how they end the season. So at this point, after at Raiders, I'm like, it is very possible that they are not only going to be above 500, but maybe a couple games above it. Like, if things go really well, they could be 7-3. So they're sitting right there in the standings. Then they get Philly at home, KC at home, at Detroit, Minnesota at home, Chargers at home, at Washington, Christmas, at Giants. I think every one of those teams, except for the Giants, are playoff teams of a year ago. Granted, four of the six are at home. Like 4 of those 6 are at home.
It is the first time in NFL history that a team has to play 5 straight games with teams that won 11 games or more.
Yes.
The previous year, not just playoff teams, 11 games or more. So,
but 4 of those 6 are at home. So at least they have that advantage going into it. So, like I said, if they could get to something like 7, if they're like 5-5, they're done, right? Like they're done. They're not going to survive this. But if they're 7-3, if they could just navigate 2 to 3 wins out of that stretch, they're going to make the playoffs with that.
I'll push back though. They sucked at home last year. They were They were not just bad. They were terrible at home last year. So, I mean, do they get that back? I don't know. But I do know in that first half last year, we were saying they weren't just losing at home. They were losing 50-0 to the Ravens and teams like that. So I'm just pointing that out, that like that might not even be as big of an advantage that you might think it is as well. So I
agree. But like you think about this late in the season, they get Minnesota and the Chargers back to back at home. Do you think Minnesota's going to be 14-3 again? Because I really don't. Not with a rookie quarterback. So I don't know what exactly. And they're in a meat grinder division. So who knows? Then they get the Chargers who, they made the playoffs a year ago. Yeah, they might be better. They didn't really do much in the offseason that made me think that they're going to be that much better than they were a year ago. Sure. So we don't know where they are. Denver's going to be better. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They might be the 3rd place team in their division. And by week 16, again, like, let me put it this way. I thought what the coaching change, that I didn't really see much with them. I think the Pickens deal is a really risky thing to do because of like Pittsburgh walking away from people is always a red flag, like a huge, huge, huge red flag when they walk away from people. But he is a great talent, right? I look at their schedule of the 3 teams that I think are contenders, no offense, Giants, Eagles, Commanders, and Dallas to a lesser degree, but still not a bad roster. Of the schedules, theirs is the most favorable of the 3, and it's not actually close. And yes, they have a nasty gauntlet at the end of the season, but their record might be good enough to withstand it, to get down there at the end. I'm calling them now. I think they're a playoff team this year because of their schedule. Not necessarily because I think they're great, but I think because of their schedule, they're going to be hanging around with the other 2, and they're going to make the playoffs as a wild card team this year.
They kind of remind me of the Commanders from last year. Like my phrase last year was striking distance. If they can keep it around 500, rip off 2 or 3 wins, and then keep that, maintain that above 500 record, I could totally see them in the playoffs. I think they're a wild card team anyways. Like I just keep saying this. When Dak is healthy, they win 9 games usually if he's healthy. So I think the roster is a little bit better. They just need to stay above water. That's going to be their key. They can't let the pressure get to them if they, drop 1 or 2 tough losses.
It's the craziest part is I look at the schedule and I go, if you still had McCarthy as your coach, I would almost guarantee you, short of a ton of injuries, that you would make the playoffs with this schedule based on what the Commanders and the Eagles have to do. But like they didn't. So that's a wild card for them too. I know he comes from incredible coaching lineage, but it was a weird decision, and it always was a weird decision. And if things go sideways, people just start writing narratives about the weird decision, especially if the coaches get in the way of it. All right, one quick thing before I go to a break that I didn't bring up last week that I want to see if you agree with this. So, I love this time of year because the social media departments of the teams around the league get to do what is the closest thing they can do to win an Emmy or an Oscar. They put out their schedule release videos. I got to tell you, it's not across the board, but this year was a down year, I think, for most of the teams. There were a couple, and they've become really good at these things that I thought put out really, really good, snarky, funny, on-the-money ones. But across the league, there was a kind of jump the shark feel about it because I would say way more than half of them. I didn't watch all of them, but actually the majority of them weren't great, in my opinion. They were okay. I don't know where you landed on them this year.
I agree. Down year overall. I thought other teams went for it a little more this year. Like they went for the home run swings and some of them landed with a thud. I also thought there were too many where it was like, what were the best ones of the last couple of years were the Chargers anime ones, right? Like those were like the best ones, right? I thought too many teams went real life status this time, like using the players and the executives. Like the Ravens did a Severance,
I saw that one.
And while I appreciate the production of it all,
I agree. Yes.
I don't need Eric DaCosta being an actor. I don't. So I appreciated the production value on it, but I'm like, these guys, you could tell, like, we're barely getting through this. And so I'm with you. Down year, I actually thought, like, I'm with you. I see the Chiron there. Chargers was the best one again.
Theirs is amazing. Now, they also did, like, 10 of them did Minecraft. And I'm not surprised because the Minecraft movie was so popular. But, like, to me, there's this part of this that goes, I think you want to be appealing to everybody. And people might I get it. And I understand it's like a big deal, but like, come on, guys. How about send a memo to everybody else too? Are you guys doing Minecraft? Because like 10 of them were Minecraft this year.
So that's what I was going to say too. They need to get on a call for how big of a day this is for the social media. They need to lay this out like a month before of like, here's what we're thinking. And the ones with the same concepts need to figure out how to alternate those, because I'm with you. Like, I forget who had to cancel theirs. Was it the Chargers that had to delete theirs?
The Colts had to take theirs down because they did a couple of jokes that were way over the top, including one about Tyreek Hill that he actually publicly said he thought was funny. So
that's another one where I was like, wait a minute, I thought the Chargers did Minecraft. There's like, oh no, the Colts did it too. So they need to figure that one out. I'm here though to say, like, don't force it with some of these guys in terms of making them actors. I'm out on that. Refresh my memory. Which one was Tennessee? You got to remember, because I watched
Tennessee. Okay, so Tennessee did the best one ever a couple of years ago, which was the man on the street on Broadway, and all the people didn't even know what the logos were, and that way, and then they put it up as that way. It was hilarious. This year they did one called Schedule Rizzy, which was a drug that you could take for having like NFL withdrawals, and the side effects were the teams on the schedule. So when they showed so they said the side effects you would have by taking Schedule Rizzy, and like one of them was the Browns, and they said diarrhea. Like it was really, really, really great. Or like it was something that showed the Chargers and they're like general malaise. You know? It was really, really great.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that one was good too. There was one where I did like this one, but same thing. I don't think it like resonated, where the Bills one, they like call Josh Allen up and they go, what do you think we should do for the schedule? And he's like, oh, just use AI like everyone else. And then it was Allen Iverson. And while that's a good bit, Iverson has nothing to do with Buffalo. Like, that's where I was kind of landing on that one, where it was, I think some of them were trying just a little too hard. I'm with you. Down year. But at the same time, I like the swings that some of these guys made. I would say this: less real life and less using the players and people in your organization. That's what I would land on after this season.
Yeah. And I would just say this, and like, I'd like to run this company now that I think about it. I think like leaving it internal to allow all these groups to do this with the resources that they have, they're actually spending money to make these things.
Sure.
And they go viral. Like they're like huge like digital media now. There probably should be a company making these for them, or like pitching them and putting these things together. But like, that's just not for everybody. I think the Chargers seem to hit it out of the park every single year. But not everybody is. That's all.
One thing I will say is this: I did really like the Commanders in terms of the way that it stacked up against the other teams. I don't think you probably ever played Roller Coaster Tycoon. I did back in the day.
I didn't know what that was. Okay, so if I'm being honest, my kids did, but I didn't know, because I showed it to them. I'm like, what is this? And they were like, they told me what it was.
I did play that way back in the day, so that was funny to me. And the Commanders' references to some of the things in there, like Jerry World opened up and it was all these people sprinting to be the first in line, which I thought was funny. Their best bit was grabbing the Chiefsaholic guy and then putting him into a isolation. Like, I thought the Commanders one was actually much better than people gave it credit for, but same thing. You had to play that game to actually get some of the references.
You had to be on the inside to know the joke. And so I just didn't know it. All right. Anyway, Bram watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I want to go back to this for a minute. This has been brutal this year with all these, game sixes, game sevens, elimination games. You build up for all of this stuff. And this was predictable after Jason Tatum got hurt. I was, I'll give them credit. The Celtics won game 5 and at least forced game 6, but then totally no-showed game 6, like embarrassingly no-showed. And I'm not surprised the Knicks won, especially off of Tatum getting hurt, but the game was over seemingly before it started. The one yesterday, the OKC Denver one, all they've been talking about for the last 2 weeks is how tired Denver is, like as if everyone else didn't play the same schedule that they did the whole time. But how tired Denver is. It was like they were putting into the ether that there was going to be a disappearing act by them. And it took till the end of the first half when OKC went on a crazy run to like make what was a game, then a 14-point lead. And Denver just decided not to play the second half whatsoever. And it became an all-time. I'm turning it off with 7 minutes to go because there's no chance that they're going to come back. And I'm not going to listen to them try to explain away the next 7-8 minutes. And I don't want to hear the post game where they really should be like, how embarrassing is this that here's Jokic and Murray and this championship caliber team that totally no-shows in a game 7. And then the Maple Leafs, who started like a ball of fire in their series, lose 2 home games, 6-1 each. Okay, 6-1. Elimination game, 6-1 at home. I don't know, man. Like this happened in the earlier rounds in the NBA too, where there were like elimination games, just total no-shows. There's something like in the air that's almost symptomatic that there seems to be a lack of fight at some point in a lot of teams when they just feel like, well, it's just not going to happen this year.
When it comes to Denver, I'm not like making excuses for them. Remember they fired their coach with like a month left in the season or whatever
that's
it was. But I'm just saying
for doing that.
But I'm just saying, you know how this works. It means the vibes were already bad, and they were going, we're not going to go anywhere unless we make a change here. They did.
And they were validated. They did win a series, and they won a tough series. So I'll give them that. They were right about that. I remember when the owner did the interview about it, and he explained it, and I said, this is the best I've ever heard an owner explaining why they did something extremely unusual at the end of a season. And he actually turned out to be right for doing it because they did make it to this point. And then game 7 rolls around against OKC, and they decided not to play the second half.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening there in the microcosm of that game, but I will say they did make the right call, and I think expectations get a little wonky when you do win a series, and you have won a championship with Jokic before, and he is one of the best players in the NBA. So I think the expectations got out of whack, and OKC, let's just not forget, they were the 1 seed. Like, they were the best team in the league for a lot of the Western Conference for most of the season. So it's not like I want to discount them either in this game 7 as well. On the other side to Florida, Toronto. Toronto is a mess in terms of the vibes of that franchise. I don't know what they need to do to exercise the demons, but they're a little bit Washington football. The way that team is covered, the way that the team, the fans act around the team.
Oh, I think they're more Cowboys, I think. Kind of like they haven't won in a long time. They have a good enough team to win, but people pressurize the situation so much on them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good comparison. They are the, premier brand of the Canadian teams, I would say. And they have this stacked roster with all of these, not just stars, but superstars. And then when you have a guy like Brad Marchand after the game going, yeah, well, their fans, they just beat that pressure into that team. So we knew we were going to be pretty good to go in that game 7. That's crazy to say in the NHL. I think you could say it in any other sport, but in the NHL, for a player of his caliber to come out and say the fans caused that type of pressure, oh, man, that is like, I don't know what you even do with that, because every time it happens now, it's just going to ramp up the pressure a little bit. Here's the thing, too, with the Maple Leafs. Every time this happens, their media is relentless. Every time they even get close. They were up 2-0 and everyone was still on edge, and rightfully so, because what did they do? They blew that, and they lose in the game 7. I don't know what kind of exorcism you have to have. That's just a franchise that cannot get it done right now, and I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, there's just too much pressure in the building. There's too much pressure around them, and then it shows when they look nervous.
Yes,
they look nervous. Like everybody's assuming they're going to lose on some level, or demanding that they have to win, and then it just turns sideways on them. I don't know if there's a social media star up there, but I don't know how there isn't a Stephen A. Saskatchewan that makes fun of Toronto every time they do things like this, because it's like clockwork every year. And they obviously have a great team that could score a ton of goals with an all-time player on it. And yet they have these crazy, and what makes it even worse is they won the first 2 games of the series.
Yes.
So they were finally probably up there going, we're finally going to get by this and we're finally going to do this. I remember, like we just don't have that kind of media market here where, the Capitals for years and years had really, really good teams with all-time players and would go out before getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, but we didn't kill them. It was heartbreaking, but it was always like, good try, guys. Like it was never like this where the expectations are just completely out of whack.
So I think there's the argument here too. Like when the Capitals got bounced, it depended on who bounced them, right? Like when they got bounced by the Penguins and the Penguins would go on and win the cup, that was hard to swallow, but you'd go, we lost to the team that won, right? When they got bounced a couple of times by like the Rangers after losing, a 3-1 series lead, or, a game where they should have won and eliminated them and the Rangers come all the way back, those were more heartbreaking. I'm with you. What I think is happening here too is like Florida's in the middle of an all-time run, right? Like they have this stacked roster. They have a really good goaltender, Bobrovsky, who turns into Superman in the playoffs. They got a bad matchup. And people should be talking more about how Florida is on this like dynasty level type run. But because it's the Maple Leafs and you're basically talking about hockey royalty versus a hockey team in Florida, of all places, you're not going to get that argument. So that's the other side of that, too, that I think is also a factor, but no one's really going to talk about it.
Yeah. All right, let me take a quick break. Brad Bush Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I did not leave myself enough time to talk about the Caps because I wanted to kind of rehash what happened and talk about the roster decisions that are coming, because there's money coming off the books here. Backstrom, Oshie are finally off the books. Carlson's a year away from his contract ending, which I would assume will be his last year, or if it isn't, it won't be at that price point for sure. So we'll just have to see, so we'll talk about that tomorrow because I didn't leave enough time because I got to get to the Orioles, who did fire their manager. This is predictable. The doomsayers in Baltimore, who I follow, like, is why X is still the greatest at times. They've been predicting exactly what would happen from the get-go, starting in spring training. And this has been the longest car wreck I've ever seen. It's the slow motion of all slow motion car wrecks. Here's this team that has a million great prospects that they're trying to figure out where the puzzle pieces fit as they mature and become good players. They're ahead of the curve because their talent is so outrageous, specifically Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman. Cedric Mullins is really, really good. So good that they actually traded away some pretty good players along the way. But what they did not do, and this is why this started going sideways, was fill the voids that they had in the roster. They had one good ace for a year and then lost him for reasons I think had less to do with their money. But some of the Orioles people up there will tell you junky offers that came along the whole time are part of the story with Corbin Burns deciding to go to Arizona. They never replaced him. They haven't had good pitching. Then what started happening this year was they have a glut of prospects. They don't know where to play all of them. They're playing games with some of them. Then they have this clubhouse that clearly needs veteran leadership, doesn't have any in it, right? The manager can't settle them down. Things go sideways in the summer. This is the all-time slow motion car wreck that it turns around. And if you are let's just rejuvenate and have the optimism, they didn't have it there, even though they still have all of these great prospects, right? They never got their Jason Worth to try to settle the locker room down. They never replaced Burns or got any kind of real front end starting pitching. Their bullpen is kind of whatever. And all of a sudden, this is predictable. It starts going bad. And now it's the hitting that's bad because probably the vibes are off. Then people start asking, if you have all these great prospects, why are none of them getting better? You're clearly not developing anybody. And then logically, someone takes the fall. It's the manager. And I am not going to be the first, to sit here and go, I think that's the right answer. But I'm with everybody else who's been watching this going, it is not his fault. And I know it's not his fault. And they don't seem to have a clear answer as to how to fix this. I do now, but I've never seen anything like this where they are literally killing the golden goose in front of all of us, and we all know it.
The other thing that happened was really on Friday. Hyde made a big mistake and let the Orioles pitch to James Wood and ended up winning the game for the Nationals. Here's what's happening. Here's what happened too. If you're Hyde, you couldn't have had an own goal like that either. Because then when you're starting to make a mistake that does let a team like the Nationals win, you're dead in the water. And it was the old 1 week ago, the Orioles say they're not going to fire Hyde. We all know that means nothing because they end up firing him anyways, and that's exactly what happened. I'm actually more concerned with what happened afterwards. You usually fire the coach, the GM, the whatever, when you have a winnable series against a team that's not that great. The Orioles didn't just lose to the Nationals. They were blown out early in the following games, which I think is actually the more concerning part. If I'm this franchise, I'm this team. They gave up like 6 runs in the first inning, then 6 or 7 runs in the second inning on Sunday's game. That's where I'm actually concerned because you fire the coach to have an opportunity to turn things around. The Nationals came in and swept you, and I've been watching the Nats. They're not great this year. You shouldn't be. I understand if you lose, but losing like that was crazy to me, like legitimately crazy to me. They need a full reset, and I'm not sure how you do that, but they need to hit the reset button very badly.
Also, I'll say this just from PR perspective. You know who didn't talk about this? The GM or the owner.
Right.
Do a press conference, guys. But you don't want to do one because people are going to ask the real questions, which is, why is this GM here?
Right.
That's why you don't want to do the press conference. And then, okay, I'll tell you what the answer is. Hire me. I'll tell you what to do because you do. Like, this is the one where I don't need to scout anybody. I know what you have. You are going to set in stone the people that are the pillars of your organization moving forward. You're not trading Gunnar Henderson to anybody. I wouldn't trade Adley Rutschman to anybody, and I'm not trading Jackson Holliday to anybody. Those are the 3. Everyone else, before they become massive depreciating assets, get moved immediately now to either restock some younger people, which I don't think you need a ton of, but more importantly, get pitching in here, a ton of pitching in here. And then I would go to the agents of the 3 pillar people, try to sign them long-term immediately. You may not get a deal done with any of them because that's kind of how the business works, but I would signal it that you want to do it right now and move all these other, because you screwed up everybody else. That's your fault. But the only way out of this is to set a few people that are the designated leaders, pillars of the organization, and move on from the others and get valuable assets before you ruin all of them and there is no value for them because this clubhouse is beyond broken.
Not only that, they need to figure out what their philosophy is going to be as a team moving forward. You know, I was reading a piece, I think it was by Jason Stark, who still writes for The Athletic, and it was either him or someone else that I was reading that was basically saying the Orioles haven't found their mix of how to handle those players you just mentioned. He used an example of, go look at the Padres. The Padres had no problem trading away all their prospects. Yes. And now they're back into playoff contention. Like, they rebuilt it really fast. But, you know, everyone's saying, oh, look at the Juan Soto trade. The Nationals got CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, and a couple of other players that we haven't seen yet. But everyone's going, they're still a really good baseball team. They trade away everybody. Then you have other teams like the Dodgers, I think, are a good one, where they hit that middle ground where they don't have a problem trading guys, but they don't let their top guys go anywhere. They basically said the Orioles need to stop becoming prospect huggers. And I love that phrase, prospect huggers, because they call these guys up and it's, oh, he's the 4th ranked prospect in America or whatever. Then he doesn't do anything, or all of a sudden he's buried in the lineup. They need to figure out how to actually asset manage more than anything else right now, and manage whatever's happening in that clubhouse too. Like you and I didn't joke about it. We said the day after they got swept in the playoffs, they needed to sign their Jason Worth. Whoever their veteran was going to be there for 5 years to just be the leader, and they didn't do that. And I think it's coming out in bunches now that's what they really needed this offseason more than anything, honestly.
They need 2 GMs. They had a good one who got a lot of prospects. They need another one who knows how to actually run an MLB roster and knows how to asset manage, because this person doesn't. This is the part where the big void is for them.
Yep.
All right. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bram Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.